Hi there. It's time to change the fluid on my beta shock. So I'll attempt to do a little how-to today and hopefully not screw myself too much. So what I'll attempt to do is film it. I might just narrate some of the key points, and the rest of it I'll just film and put in comments in the video when I edit it out later. So what I did, it's beta is obviously a linkage type bike, so it's always a good idea to remove your linkage every so often. Check your bearings and grease them. Typically, if you grease them and look after them, those bearings last a long time. It's only when they're typically not looked after that they shit the bed. So what I did is remove the linkage. Also, a really good way, the beta is a little bit tight here to get the shock out through. So what I do is I just undo the subframe, and then obviously it moves out of the way. So I got the shock in the vise, gave it a decent clean. I'm still going to clean it a little bit better. So next up is going to be removing the spring collars, removing the spring, the holder at the bottom, and hopefully I'll film it here so it looks decent. Okay, so a few things I want to do before I actually take the shock apart. Number one, I got my own nitrogen kit here. Most shocks come with one-way rubber valves, and here what I actually did is install the Schrader. Good idea is to check the pressure before you actually release it from the system to see where it was at. So with nitrogen, it's a very, very small chamber, so you want to get it right the first time. That's actually not bad, about 90 psi, so it lost a little bit, but by checking the pressure here, you lose a little bit of pressure too. Most of these are fairly straightforward. All you have to do is just take the pressure off the spring, take your bump stop down. There's a little washer here, you might be able to see it. And then slide the collar out. So the collar's out, washer comes out, spring comes out, and set that aside. I'm not going to need it for a while. Right, so we're just about ready to take the shock apart. What you want to do first before you take it apart is basically give yourself a baseline of what you're going to look after once you fill the entire cavity with oil. So all you want is a nice steady downward push with no knocks, nothing letting go quicker, nothing like that, and then more importantly, for it to come back nice and even. So what I'll do is I'm going to take the pressure off the system. So there's a bladder in here that acts on oil that goes in here through the air compression valving. Through here some magic happens and then goes through your stack that I'll show later. And then we basically want to remove the pressure. So I'm going to take out my Schrader valve first. Then this should basically push through. There's a lock ring in here. Bladder should pull out. Then we're going to take this out here, force it out, pour out the old oil, pour in the new oil. Sounds pretty simple? Oh yeah, and always wear eye protection, because you never know. So there's the old nitrogen. Now wasn't hard at all. God. Keep a rag around this because it'll probably shit the bed here. All over the place. There we go. There he goes. Now, if anybody ever tells you that suspension work is clean work, they're fucking horrible liars. This oil, I'm gonna have to check my notes. I think it's about 80 hours on it. Something about the beta. Really, really filthy oil. I think it's the anodizing wearing inside here. Oh yeah, look at that. There you go. Darth Vader sounds. You can see how the oil's slowly getting drawn out of the circuit, and oddly enough that just let go, which is nice. So now we can get our other lock ring here, so, and that'll get us to the seal head and shaft out. You can see, actually, sorry, see, no oil, no bueno. Secure that. Oh yeah, beauty. Nice and clean. Fuck. All right, so we're not doing nothing here. So this is the seal head that sits in the bottom of the shock, and the circlip just holds this in place. Just have a quick look through your components here, make sure everything's okay, everything looks all right. You can use a little bit of compressed air to clean it out. We're not touching any of this stuff. It's just basically going in exactly the way it came out. And yeah, just changing the oil, right? So here's our filthy little cylinder. There's the rest of the crud. I'm gonna run some WD-40 through here just to clean it out. Technically, I used to take out, you can see the compression circuit. I used to take that out to bleed it a little bit easier. This will spin out. I'll show that later. It's not really necessary. So yeah, let me clean this up and get back to here. Okay, so I ended up taking out the compression valve. You can see I got my flashlight set up into the main body of the shock. So that comes straight through, and then in the reservoir you can see the light here coming through. Now, interesting thing, I'm not sure if you can see it, but you can see the anodizing that's worn basically right where the main part of that guy there moves up and down. So that's why my oil's so filthy, right? So here's my compression valve all removed. So what happens, again, this is only my understanding. I mean, you know, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but obviously take it all apart the way it comes. I already screwed this up, but you can see this valve has kind of an angular thing that slots in here like so, and then it basically moves these ports up and down, opening or blocking them in turn, controlling how much fluid comes into this reservoir. That's the way I understand it. And the whole thing's obviously set up on a spring here, so the spring basically keeps tension on all of that. So that's my understanding. So I don't know, seems to work. So what I'll do now is I'm going to put the compression valving back in, because I want to start actually putting oil into the system here. You can see some, I just used some old oil of any denomination just to kind of get the cleaning agent out. And yeah, I'm going to start filling the system with oil. Right, so ready for oil now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to see if I can actually show the yeah, that should work. Oil coming in. So I'm going to pour oil in here first. Ooh, maybe that will work. You can see quite a bit of oil in there. Get another bottle here of good stuff. And what am I using? Well, I'm just using 5-weight fork oil. So I'm going to fill this pretty much brim it. And there's the oil coming in like the ooze from a horror movie. So I'm just going to basically work this, let it work through. Maybe go for coffee or a snack. And then we're going to go and put that guy in. Right? Okay, so this is air free. That's filled up as far as it's going to go. So we're going to go ahead and slowly push that in. So it's going to make a mess like it always does. No real way of getting around it. I mean, ideally, if I was even remotely professional, which I'm the furthest thing from, I would have, you know, a stainless steel bench here to catch all this stuff. But instead, you know, it's just years of accumulated goodness. Anywho, hang on, stand by. Okay, so this part here, you do not want to rush because it's going to make a mess. Lint-free cloths are super handy. What I like to do is lube up all the areas that will have contact. Again, make sure there was no shit here, and to tell you the truth, I forgot whether or not I actually cleaned this with air. There, now I cleaned it. Okay, so I still have my tie wrap up here to keep this thing from coming down. But the name of the game is going to be to just get this into the oil first and slowly work this within the shaft here to get all the air out. Once we're satisfied with that, we're going to put the head seal in and then the cap. Now, head seals, typically, if there's nothing wrong with the head seal, I don't touch it because then I got to disassemble the entire shim stack. Surprisingly easy to do. It's just a nut. Then you get a screwdriver, put the screwdriver on the end, let all the shit fall off. So the basically the order is the same. Pull the head seal off, but put a new head seal on. These rarely go unless you get some shit on your shaft. And then you know, then it gives you issues. So the oil has come down a little bit. It's actually worked its way through the valve here. So I'm going to just top this up because you don't want to have any air in here. If this overspills, that's fine. You're better off overspilling some than having to fight to get the air out. Don't forget to put this thing in. Keep your fingers on it so it stays in the groove. Try not to get bits of your glove in. And like I said, take your time. Now, okay, there we go. That's in. Now the trick is not to push on the shaft because then we're going to push this in. So I'm just going to slowly work this in with my hands. Again, try to work as cleanly as humanly possible. So you can't really see it, well you will now. You can see the fluids at the very top. So if I actually slowly move this with one hand, and this is really not ideally done with one hand's only good for you know what. Slowly. So I can see small bubbles coming out here. You don't want to pull on this too fast because the whole thing's going to come out and spray you all over the face. Oh, just slowly work the air out. We'll get a feel once it bottoms. Slowly draw it up. And you'll feel the shaft pull up, and then your actual piston's going to start dragging. So you don't want to go too far. And if you take your time, all the air will come out. Now, if you don't get all the air out here the first time, it's not that big of a deal, because what we'll do is we're going to actually put the head seal in once we have this thing as full as possible, and we're going to just work the shaft back and forth, and the air is going to come out through here. But the thing is that's a lot harder then, because then you're just basically fighting the oil back and forth. So get as much as you can through here. Yeah, I think this is as good as it's going to get. So I'm ready to go ahead and get messy again. Old bath mats work great. Or use current ones and see how much a divorce lawyer is going to cost. Ugh. Okay, so I'm full here, so of course I'm going to have oil jism here all over the place, but get this ready. Slowly push the head seal in. Don't have to go very far with it. You want to just go far enough so you can put your circlip in. And what seems to work well for me when it does is I just start one end, it should be there, and just basically work my way around the other. And you'll know when it's in, because you'll be able to pull all the way up on it without it going anywhere. So we're good. That actually didn't make that big of a mess, and don't need the bath mat that badly. Okay, so we're not going to put this on yet because it's just going to get in the way. And then also what you can do is basically see if you get any leakage coming out. So you can see right now, remember at the start of the video, this came up by itself. That's because it had oil and it had nitrogen here. It was under pressure, so it basically came up. We're open atmosphere, so that's not going to happen. But what we want to watch is this shaft coming up evenly, and I can already feel mid-stroke here it's pulling a little bit easier, so I got to work some air out of the valving. Key thing is to go all the way down, go all the way up to draw, go full stroke. Man, the sexual references in this video. This is actually coming down by itself slowly, which it's meant to do, but and all you're looking for here is an even pull and an even push. If it drops, that means it's got air in it. That's air basically coming through here, right? And then obviously I'm about, the oil level's this high right now, so that's about right. And obviously the oil level comes up here as I'm going full compression, and then as I'm going full extension, it drops down a little bit. So I'm going to do this a few more times. And yeah, if you do your own suspension, you can skip the gym that day. So that feels actually pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead actually and put this guy back on. Wipe this crap off. Wipey wipies. Take your precision tools. Go around till it seats. Okay, should be able now to go all the way down and back up. If you pull through it quickly, the air will actually manifest itself that much better. And you can actually feel those knocks if you still had air in the system. Okay, that feels pretty good. So next up, I'm going to go ahead and put the bladder in. Now, if memory serves me correctly, shock has to be, wait for it, fully extended. So we want to have as much oil in the system as possible so the bladder can actually fit in. To aid it dropping in, try to compress it as much as you can. It's a little bit tough to do. That way it gives you maximum pressure, and you'll know that you have enough oil in the system, because this will make a mess. So Mr. Bath Mat, I need your assistance here. Yeah, that's gonna make a right mess. Snug as a bug. Okay, oil's gonna come out here shortly. There it is. Now ultimately I am gonna always have oil spillage, because you want that. You want all the air out of the system. You don't want to be cheap like I am and then have oil here not overflowing. So this is the shock telling you that, hey, you're okay, you got all the oil out. So I'm slowly gonna kind of work it, the piston in. There we go. And again, this one's just getting held together by a circlip, so we just want to get it far enough so we can press the circlip in. There we go. That's it. So the easiest way to show this, you can see right now, the system's still open because my Schrader valve's in, right? So when I push down on this, the piston doesn't come up because the bladder's just collapsing to atmosphere. This came up. More importantly, this came up. So now the system's pressurized. It's no longer open to atmosphere. So check for leaks. And then more importantly, remember at the start of the video how the shock felt. It feels identical. So amazingly, I've actually done something right. No knocks. You can see the shaft coming up evenly at the same speed. I got maybe less than 60 psi of air in here. Typically you want to see about 150 pounds of nitrogen in here. Now keep in mind, if you don't have your nitrogen bottle, if you're not a baller like me, myself, Richard and Evil Greg, because we went and bought a system together, then you can actually just take your complete shock at this stage with your Schrader valve, or even with your stupid rubber plug, to any shop, and they'll basically fill it for you for, you know, a nominal fee. Like I think even a tire shop we'll fill it with nitrogen because nitrogen gets used on tires, right? So what I'll do next is I'm going to get my nitrogen setup ready here. I'm going to let the air go. So let's actually do that. So that should all be all the air out of the system. And you can see with the bladder not having pressure on that oil, nothing happens, right? So that's what we want to see is we want to have that pressure on the system and keep it there. All right, let's get the nitrogen set up. Okay, got the bottle all set up. So this is bottle pressure ahead of the regulator valve. This is the actual valve regulator pressure. Then up here we have a secondary gauge indicating pressure in the line. Once we have it, obviously we got another shutoff valve here. Then this goes up over to the system. This threads on to the actual Schrader valve, and this little red pin pushes on the Schrader valve itself. So in this case, now the minute the nitrogen is ready to go, it's going to go into the system and we should see the shock go up. Or sorry, the shaft go up. So first things first, of course, safety glasses always. Not like it matters if this thing blows up, I wouldn't fucking have a head left. So make sure this is tight. You're going to open up your tank valve. There you go. There's your tank pressure gone up already to about 1800 psi. You can see the regulator pressure, we're sitting at 246, well, it's 170 psi. Obviously here we're at zero pressure because the valve is closed. It's not in line, it's 90 degrees. College came in handy for something apparently. So anyways, well, I'm going to open this up. We're going to see the valve go up. So again, this is open now. So the minute I crack this open, 170 psi of nitrogen will go in. And open it slowly. There you go. There it is. Now I can go ahead and close that. So now I got no more nitrogen, and I'm going to just basically open this up as quickly as possible. So now the valve is closed. I can take this off. And take your time. Close off your supply. We didn't have to change the regulator, but the valve is closed. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So keep in mind, this hose is still under pressure, so don't be an idiot and undo this first. So what we want to do is we want to just bleed off the excess. There you go. Excess is bled off. Put that back in. You can see there's zero stored energy in this system now. Obviously, this is closed as well, so you can take your big boy wrench and take that off. And last but not least, we'll check the shaft, see how it feels. Terrific. Job done. So the last thing we need to do is obviously put the spring in. This one's a even spring. I'm going to put that on first, seat it. Clean off your washer. Put that on. Like so. And that's going to go in. Sorry, I forgot to do the bump stop here. Yeah. So that's all you do there. So that goes in. The washer sits against that. Put your bump stop and push it all the way up. Flip this bad boy up the other make sure this is nicely seated, and all we're going to do is put tension on the spring now. That's it. I just got to put on my little cap here with a set screw, and that's all this thing needs. It's good to go.